Hello, thanks for joining this professional development session from The Good Project. Today's topic is pursuing purpose, an overview and a puzzle. We're going to look at what the word purpose means and how it's defined in the literature. We'll hopefully think together about different ways to foster purpose in a learning environment. And then we're going to dive a little further into a puzzle around purpose that our project has picked up on that is hopefully thought-provoking for all of you. So to start, some questions that we want each of you to consider if you sit back and pause for a second to think about how you feel in response to each one of these questions. First, how confident are you that you have discovered a satisfying purpose in your life? Take a few seconds to think about that. How engaged are you in carrying out the plans you have set for yourself? Maybe you feel very engaged, a little engaged, not very engaged. And then finally, how important is it for you to make the world a better place in some way? Maybe that's something that's very important to you, maybe not as important. The reason I asked you to pause and to think about these questions is because they come from something called the Claremont Purpose Scale, which is a psychometric scale that's used in the literature to measure people's purpose. So the three questions that I pulled out from that scale each measure one of the components of purpose. The first question relates to this idea of meaningfulness. The second question relates to the idea of goal orientation, working towards a goal. And then the third question relates to this idea that purpose has to be beyond the self. So what is a purpose? As I said, it relates to those three components. So according to the work of our colleague, Bill Damon, purpose is first a long-term goal. So it's not short-term, it's not a task like finding a parking spot. Purpose is something that you have as a long-term goal. It's a vision that you have for your future for the coming months, years, or maybe even decades. Second, it's personally meaningful. So your purpose isn't dictated by somebody else. It's not something that someone else can give to you, although it might be related to people in your life, like a children you have, or caregivers, responsibilities that you might have. It's personally meaningful to you. And then finally, it's beyond the self. So not just about you. It's related to interpersonal dimensions, to the world at large, to other people. I wanted to compare purpose to a mission as well. So how does a purpose relate to mission? We think of mission at the Good Project as a statement that can help put your purpose into action. So your purpose might be something that you feel internally, but then the mission statement that you maybe write down or say puts that purpose into action and allows you to feel directed about it. A mission statement can be institutional as well as personal. So we think about organizations, maybe learning institutions like schools or universities, as well as businesses. They often have a mission statement, and your mission allows your purpose to be communicated to others. So let's look at some personal mission examples from students that I think are good representations of what purpose looks like in action. So first, you see this top example. I would like to become an interpreter or a doctor. With this, I will be able to help, I will be able to take care and help people. This would make me very happy because seeing happy people is a very pure and beautiful emotion. As well, I will be doing what I love, so I will enjoy my job. You can see how this mission statement satisfies the three components of purpose that we've talked about. It's personally meaningful to this student. You can see that they say that fulfilling this mission would make them very happy. It's beyond the self. It's about helping people. And then also it's the long-term aspect. So that goal orientation. You can see that they're thinking about future careers. Then the second example, a little bit different, but similar. In fulfilling those three components, I will commit my future career to business which is meaningful to me, and I will be responsible for my health and finances for the longevity of my life, and to ensure I can care for my family and friends. So again, it has this beyond the self dimension, caring for others. It has a personally meaningful dimension. The student even uses that word meaningful, and then it's about their future career. How does purpose relate to the Good Projects framework of good work? I think there's a strong resonance between the purpose framework that Bill Damon has outlined and the good work framework. So you can even see how the different components, the three parts of both of those frameworks kind of map onto one another. The goal-oriented piece maybe relates to excellence, this idea of trying to achieve your best. The beyond the self dimension of purpose relates to ethics. So, our view that ethical behavior involves social responsibility and caring about how your work affects others, that directly relates to thinking beyond yourself. And then finally, the engagement piece of our good work framework relates to the personally meaningful aspect of purpose. Why is it important to think about purpose, especially with young people and with adults? So, purpose is associated with a variety of positive physical and mental health outcomes. We know from research that purpose has a lot of different positives in terms of what it can provide to people's lives. That includes things like even a lower risk of cardiovascular disease that have been found in large-scale epidemiological studies, but also purpose helps to give people these mental health benefits like a sense of motivation, a sense of drive in their lives, a sense of social connection. So finding a path to purpose can help us lead richer lives overall. And purpose also may shift across the lifespan. So we think about these different aspects of purpose that may be a journey that I guess each one of us go through as we move across the lifespan. So adolescence, maybe childhood, early adolescence, late adolescence, and even early adulthood involved in seeking purpose. So exploring what our purpose can be, trying to solidify it around a purpose. Then when we are into our adulthood, early and middle adulthood, maybe feeling like we are living out our purpose. And then when we get into our older years, we might feel that purpose is shifting. A lot of people in late adulthood may feel that their purpose was demonstrated or directed around a career or around family connections, maybe children. As those family connections may wane, or people may go off, like children, to live their own lives, we may retire in later life. Purpose might shift to be about other social connections that we have, other ways we can give back to the world, like volunteering, perhaps. So this is all to say that purpose is not constant. It's something that can shift and change across the lifespan. There are many activities that can help foster purpose. If you have watched or tuned in to our first professional development workshop on purpose, you know that we tried out this purpose magic wand activity, thinking about what you want to change in your life and why, or change in the world and why, and what that reveals about your purpose. You can also think about purpose through this activity, a 5-year resume. So where do you want to be in 5 years? What kinds of accomplishments will you have made? And that might not just be about your job or your work, it can be about all of the different aspects of your life. What does that reveal about your purpose if you were to sit and think about that? And then how do you spend your time, or the life wheel? I thought that these were kind of similar activities. How you spend your time is an activity that the Good Project does, where we look at the connection between how we spend our time in a week and then our values. And a life wheel being thinking about all of these different aspects of our lives, whether it's career, family connections, the leisure time that we have. How satisfied do we feel in each one of those buckets or areas? So you can see what areas of your life you're devoting energy to and where you might feel off balance and why, and how that relates to your vision of your life purpose. So I wanted to encourage each one of you to take a moment to think about your own purpose. Using this quiz from the Greater Good Science Center at Berkeley, you can either scan the QR code or go to the link on the screen and take the quiz and see how you engage with these questions about your own personal purpose and how that might reveal something or be a good reflection tool for you about areas where you might feel that you are confident about your purpose, areas you might need to clarify, or things that perhaps you might want to change about your purpose. So take a moment to pause here and to be thinking about that as you move through this quiz. And when you're ready, come back and advance the video. So now that you've hopefully taken that quiz, we wanted to present some reflection questions that you can either answer on your own or with colleagues. How is the idea of purpose present or not in your work or your classroom? What approaches have you seen be successful in encouraging learners to be more purposeful? And what are the challenges your learners might face at the moment in developing purpose? So again, you might want to pause the video, think about your practice as an educator, and have a discussion with the colleagues if you're with a group, or a moment of personal reflection if you're doing this video solo. Second, we wanted to dive in a little bit together on this purpose puzzle that we feel in our work. So that's the idea of the connection between purpose and overload or burnout. There are many causes of burnout, and we wanted to present some of them here around common causes for adolescents. So, research has shown that many adolescents feel unrealistic expectations or a pressure to be perfectionistic from society or from themselves. They might feel limited support in their work or their daily life. And again, a recent survey has shown that 27% of teens are experiencing burnout. And this has a variety of causes. Something that our Center for Digital Thriving colleagues here at Project Zero have found is that there are 6 common pressures of grind culture. So the idea that you need to have a game plan for your future, that you need to be achieving or need to excel, appearance being a pressure, looking your best or fitting in, social life. So the idea that you need to be actively socializing and maintaining those relationships with friends, again, friendship being a cause of grind culture, and then activism. So you can see how several of these might relate to the idea of having a purpose. If you need to have a game plan for your future, that's related to your sense of purpose, and that can be a cause of stress or burnout for young people. It might feel like a grind. Again, activism, the idea that you need to have this beyond the self sense of how you're contributing, might be a cause of pressure for young people. So overall, we know youth around the world are facing a lot of pressures and mental health challenges, and the rush to find your purpose can itself become another source of pressure and anxiety. And then, third of all, I think purpose itself might lead to a sense of over-engagement, perhaps facilitating burnout. So there's this kind of dual pressure that young people might feel they need to find their purpose, and that can itself be a source of grind or a source of pressure, might lead them to feel like, oh my gosh, I don't know what my purpose is. How can I find it? And feel a stress around that. And then, even if you know your purpose, it can also lead to this over-engagement or a feeling that I need to be devoting myself to my purpose and don't know how to step back. The same can be true for older workers as well. So we know from research like this headline from Harvard Business Review that passion can often lead to burnout. And we saw that in one of our early dilemmas on the Good Project. This is a true story of a nurse who works at a healthcare organization for the homeless here in the Boston area. And she's describing this situation where over-empathizing with her patients can be risky. She felt like she lost balance by taking on a patient's sorrow and sadness. And so you see this quote from her here. My whole life, I've really liked to reach out to people in need. That can be a good thing. Perhaps that relates to Linda's sense of purpose, but it can also, on the flip side, be a dangerous thing because you can never meet everyone's needs. You have unmet needs in the world. You'll end up not even existing yourself, only existing in that context. So she's describing the situation where she feels like she probably knows her purpose and knows what purpose she's fulfilling by working in this field, but she also is wary that perhaps her purpose can be leading her to feel her own sense of burnout or overcommitment. So there's this real balance that we think about needing to strike between finding purpose and all of the benefits that come with it on the one hand, and then also making sure that we make time for self-care and making our purpose sustainable on the other hand. So in order to be thinking about this and how we can open up conversations about purpose in nuanced and reflective ways with our learners and with our adolescents that we might be working with or with our colleagues, no matter what type of workplace we're in, what are some sentence stems that you can use to spark conversation and reflection? So this is an activity where you can be thinking about how to open up conversation about purpose again in maybe more nuanced ways that allow people to be talking about both sides of purpose, this idea of self-care and sustainability that we recognize is important, but also the benefits of having a purpose and knowing what it is. So, for example, my purpose makes me feel is a good sentence stem that opens up really perhaps this bifocal way of talking about purpose. Maybe sometimes my purpose makes me feel overwhelmed, but my purpose also makes me feel really engaged. And then I know I need to take a break from my mission when. So what are some other sentence stems that you could perhaps use to be thinking about what purpose is and how people can engage with and reflect upon their purpose? Okay, thank you so much for joining this reflection session all about purpose, what it means, and how to be grappling with this puzzle around purpose that we've recognized in our work. We would love to hear from you about what your thoughts are about this very important topic.